G'day, I think Hitman Blood Money and the World of Assassination trilogy are some of the greatest games ever made. Their open-ended level design, the unique social stealth involving disguises, and the creative ways you can kill your targets makes the series one of a kind. Nothing against the other games, I just haven't played much beyond 2 or 3 levels of Silent Assassin and about 3/4 of Contracts. Because of how incredible I find the games, I do sort of hold high expectations for IO Interactive. I'm not unreasonable though. Despite having issues with 007 First Light and being tempted to point to IO's previous works as examples of what they can accomplish, I am judging First Light based on how I feel towards the systems it's giving me access to. I do not like a lot of the design decisions for 007, and I feel that way knowing IO weren't trying to make a successor to their main franchise, rather than me setting out to complain this isn't Hitman. I think that sort of argument doesn't really make much sense, and it doesn't do anything for the discussion of 007. I was somewhat surprised at first by the few high-scoring reviews I watched and read that never made mention of the things I'm going to talk about, but I think that just goes back to a couple of topics I've spoken about in a few videos. I am no longer interested in a AAA by-the-numbers game because I've been exposed to many much more involved games that have more interesting features that are to my liking. Holding W while being spoken at does nothing for me. QTEs that can't even be failed for a funny death animation feel pointless, and every drive-in section bar one can put me to sleep faster than a warm cup of milk and a lullaby. First, let me start with the espionage aspect. On a repeat playthrough of, for example, the Grand Carpathian Hotel, you'll find that many conversations you can have asking where the blonde man is aren't actually necessary to progress. You're able to grab a press pass from outside and walk straight from the entrance to the laundry door and enter the code, bypassing a lot of questioning and exploring. At a glance, it probably sounds like potential is there for replayability. It is, in that there are challenges for getting through areas without being spotted, or going through the same areas and knocking out X amount of guards and whatever else. There's just next to no replayability with anything meaningful because the design of the game is quite linear. Even the training montages don't have any variance when it comes to how long you take to complete them. The best way I can describe these levels is that they are like a series of rooms. An amount of doors are presented to you, let's say 3, but you're not sure which one is correct or the best to approach. For some reason, the key for each door is conveniently located right next to them, so you grab it, pick door number 1, find a room filled with something, progress again, find another room filled with something else, go to a final room, and then that door opens to your destination. On replay, you find that doors 2 and 3 are only different in that the rooms are decorated differently. You still progress through hallways and rooms to get to the same location. And in the case of the hotel level, you learn of a 4th door that's just a hallway straight to your destination. Another example I'll give, and this is your spoiler warning by the way, so I'll just leave that for a couple of seconds for anyone that cares. The web industries level. You need a key card to progress, and your way of getting one is either to get a Roomba to open the door for you, where you're able to access the comically large vents, or you can ask Greenway to boost you onto some artwork. Either option still funnels you to the same location. There aren't really systems to interact with or shortcuts to learn that open up different opportunities. Some player expression can be found when navigating areas filled with guards. You'll have different routes to take and many ways to distract someone, lock them in a room, do a stealth takedown, etc. It's just that the initial espionage sections don't really feel all that engaging. None of the levels where you're walking around trying to gain access to certain areas or follow specific people ever feel like you're uncovering anything yourself. It all feels very railroaded. The signposting and handholding in this game is pretty extreme at times, and it's evident the very moment you're first given control. The yellow tinged flowers or bushes or whatever they are in the distance is one thing, but to also paint my path with a yellow object right next to a gap to shimmy through is something else. Probably a speedrun record for how quickly it needs to treat the player like a toddler, and I'm not really sure of its purpose. Did any playtesters actually get lost in this closed off section of beach that has 0 pathways out other than the one that's signposted? At least an item that makes sense to be yellow is used rather than the Resident Evil 4 remake approach of clumsily pouring paint over everything. Other sections do try to signpost with diegetic items rather than anything that looks out of place or too video gamey, and that's great. I'll always give praise to IO Interactive's environment artists because they do wonders at making locations feel real and lived in. And to be honest, sometimes this yellow paint stuff is a bit of a necessity with how graphically cluttered games are getting. The better the graphics get and the more items artists make for environments. I just personally think a lot of routes in First Light are pretty obvious without the need for them. Nor do I think there needs to be an objective marker highlighting an object that I already know I need to grab whilst Bond yells out loud what I'm supposed to be doing.
Hose! Grab the hose!
Did playtesting indicate a lack of understanding of what they were supposed to be doing? Is it just a general requirement because of that assumption that most people are playing games or watching movies with a second screen distracting them? I don't know the answer. I think I'm extra annoyed when I see it because I have finished games like System Shock Remake and that does not hold your hand or feed you direct instructions, and I loved it for that reason. That game was a medium rare steak, whereas 007 First Light is someone feeding me custard on a spoon they won't let me hold as they make aeroplane noises. Okay, quick Hitman comparison, even though I said I wouldn't, but this is fair game in my eyes. In Hitman, you can come across conversations that reveal methods of approaching the target and other little secrets in a level. When playing on the hardest difficulty and not using markers, it's up to you to interpret the information and actually think about what you're supposed to do with it. It's great. 007 has similar conversations, but only if you click the highlighted sections to initiate the receival of this info. The game just simply won't progress the script forward until you click the eavesdrop button. And markers can't be switched off either. You're almost always stuck following the strict path of a game pretending it's more open than it is. And mind you, I don't care if something is linear. Doom Eternal is one of my most favourite games of all time and is entirely linear. What gets me with First Light is that the best moments for me are the conversations that build character, the stealth sections filled with enemies, and the combat. Exploration is quite boring and doesn't reinforce any of the game's mechanics or offer anything interesting, especially when you're stuck with sections of walking with dialogue. I've always been of the opinion that these sorts of moments should just be cutscenes. Then they can be filmed in interesting ways and we can see more of the performance capture at work or something. The only time walking around an environment is enjoyable in First Light is when you're exploring Q's lab, because there's a lot of interesting items to learn about and conversations to listen to. I think I'm potentially an outlier when asking for more cutscenes, especially when looking at the complaints that the game takes too long to start as is, whereas I think it's great it spends so much time building characters and introducing us to mechanics. The on-the-rails and frictionless design of the game extends into the vehicle sections too. You hold W and occasionally steer left and right. The music builds up, it's intense, the stakes are high, and I just feel nothing because it may as well be a cutscene. There's just nothing happening with these moments, and not much to keep you engaged. A section where you drive a boat tries to up the ante by requiring you to shoot some ice so you don't die from too many impacts. There are mines to shoot too, but pretty much all of them are to the sides where you're not even driving, and the aiming for the gun is automatic. It's not like you have to really go out of your way to shoot anything. The most exciting part about it is where some ice cuts you off and you go, "Oh fuck, look out!" Take a left or a right after blowing up a mine and you're at the end of the vehicle section anyway. The very short moment you drive the Valhalla doing doughies, firing machine guns and missiles is actually good fun. It's a spectacle that feels appropriate to the world of Bond with the use of some gadgets, and the upcoming content featuring the use of the Valhalla will hopefully provide some entertainment. There's also a fittingly garbage section where you're driving a garbage truck as cars weightlessly bounce away from you. You hold W and kinda steer left and right slightly and you just wait for the next cutscene to play basically. It reminds me of the turret sections in Doom the Dark Ages when I first hopped on a turret in that game and thought, are you serious? Instead of letting me have more of the fun gameplay, you're making me do this shit? I think at least a semblance of challenge would go a long way in making the vehicle sections much more enjoyable and memorable, especially given Everything or Nothing did that over 20 years ago, and I've only ever played the motorbike chase in a demo for that game. Performance can be pretty rubbish at times, 4K DLSS set to performance, everything on high, and with a 4090, I can hit 60 most of the time. If I use frame gen, I can hit locked 117 at the cost of the image being uncomfortable to look at. Clearly there's a lot of work that's gone into character animation, how the faces look, and the lighting looks great. I will never say this is an ugly game. It's just that Hitman isn't ugly either, and that runs a lot better. I don't like the trade-off we're getting in more games where good performance is forced to make way for marginally better looking games. Switching back and forth between Hitman and 007, I'm not really finding myself questioning the look of Hitman, it still looks great. I'm certainly questioning the choppy frame rate of 007 though. I think this is one of those old man yells at cloud type moments, so forgive me for that. Also on the topic of performance is the loading times. Just booting 007 feels like it takes way too long. And then restarting checkpoints is a pretty timely process as well. I wish it was a lot quicker. The user interface for the menus are really bad. Sorry, but I need to bring up Hitman again because its menus are a bit annoying to navigate at times, but multiple things are at least always readable at once. In First Light, a single mission now takes up an entire screen. Having so many checkpoints scattered throughout is nice for those that want to replay specific parts for challenges, but some pictures would do wonders in understanding what exact section you're selecting if the wording isn't immediately clear. These silly, overly big Netflix squares do not do it for me. QTEs don't do it for me either, as I said earlier. The dialogue choices are okay as some extra flavor, but nothing really happens with them other than a line or two that's different. Shooting, whilst really good in terms of responsiveness, weapon feedback, accuracy, aiming, and movement between cover, has additions that feel somewhat underbaked. You can shoot an enemy in the leg to prep them for a takedown, or shoot the weapon out of an enemy's hand. Weapons are so accurate though that I didn't really understand why I wouldn't just click heads instantly instead of fucking around with leg shots. And when it comes to armored enemies with helmets, they are also armored at the legs and arms, so if you're not running up to smack them around with your fists, there's no reason to not be shooting at their head to break the armor and just get a headshot. I can only recall one time where I specifically chose to shoot a gun out of someone's hands because they were above me and it flew down to where I could easily grab it. There's also so many explosives placed about and opportunities to use gadgets that I reckon there needs to be double the enemies to really make the players work for success in their shootouts. Even on Purist, it sometimes felt way too easy. I liked the melee combat, it's simple, and I think that's okay because a lot of work was done to make the fighting feel alive and reactive with all the animation work that changes based on where an enemy has been hit, where you initiate a takedown, what you're throwing them into and whatnot. I also love seeing instant drowning because it takes me back to pushing people into pools in Hitman Blood Money. The big action set pieces don't really do much for me. Visually it looks fine, it's a spectacle, there's things exploding and it all looks really pretty and everything. It's just one of those things that sticks out in a bad way for me because I know nothing is really happening here. It's a roller coaster ride that's not all that exciting. Like the APC section at the start, it actually just looks kind of stupid seeing the thing driving around not hitting a single shot on anyone. And it reminds me a lot of action movies where you see enemies holding rifles or pistols and they'll be running up to the protagonist who's a martial arts expert or something, and you'll be sitting there going, just shoot them please, somebody fire their fucking gun. I think having some sort of interactivity for some of the chases that you do and stuff would probably go a long way in having the player feel a little bit more engaged. But as I said earlier, with things like the hold W with dialogue coming at you, you might as well have just made it a cutscene and just make it look more interesting. And do you really need run to be written in the top corner? Do you really need the objective marker? Like, were there actually playtesters that started running, stopped, got confused, looked around and went, oh, I don't understand where I'm supposed to be going? And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Oh, there's also boss fights, and they were just really uninteresting. The most entertaining aspect of the boss fights in this game was when I was just fucking around with the final boss.
Oh, I hope he doesn't walk into that barrel that's blatantly there.
I'm coming for you, James.
I'm coming for you, James.
Coming!
Got your signal, James. Don't move now.
Just run in
Oh
circles
wait,
there. That way
yeah,
you're
I was gonna
close
say, what if I just do this?
Powerful.
Oh,
Work.
haha, I'm hacking you.
Come on.
enough. You can't hack me.
Oh, this should tickle your fancy, James.
There's plenty of great work done to uplift the game into being okay rather than straight up terrible. Assuming Amazon lets IO Interactive do their own thing for a sequel, I think the team could make some great strides in refining this formula and delivering something that can sit near or next to the Hitman series in terms of quality. Until the next video, have a good one.